Right before we start editing, the first thing I want to talk about is workflow. And I'm going to jump back to Canvas for a second. But let's talk about this idea of editing workflow. So if you're just editing stuff for YouTube or something, you may just grab everything, put it in a timeline, and just start doing your thing and be done with it, right? That's not the way professionals work. So there's a whole structure here that's kind of important. So when you think about editing, the first thing I want to do is organize my assets first. So remember, assets are all these files: camera files, audio files, graphics, sequences, all this stuff. I want to create a bin structure within Premiere that's organized. So if I go back here to Premiere, right now, when I imported that folder, I have a folder that says camera files. So this is going to have all my camera files in it. So notice it's not in the big main bin here all over the place, because the goal here is to be organized. Because if you're trying to find stuff and everything's in one bin and you're trying to search and hunt through it, guess how messy it is going to be, and guess how much time that's going to waste. So the first thing that I do is when I bring stuff into Premiere, I'm going to create a whole bin structure in the main bin. So I may have one that says, I may actually have camera files here. Then I might make a new bin, and I can either right click here and click new bin, or I can go down here to create a new bin here. So I just click on this little folder here, and it's going to give me a new bin. So I'm going to call this one audio. And then I might make one more. I'm going to make a new bin. This time I'm going to do it by right clicking. I'm going to call this one sequences. And then let me make one more new bin. I'm going to call this one graphics. Let's see if I can make this just a little bit bigger. So what I've done here, so pretty much the way it goes is you have to do two levels of organization. You have to do the first one on your hard drive, where you're organizing all your stuff in that project folder that I talked about. The second thing you want to do is within Premiere itself, because Premiere is not going to follow exactly the structure on your hard drive. This is all links. These are all representations of those video files within Premiere. So I want to be organized in my bin. So I'm going to make folders and I'm going to keep everything organized like this so that it's easier for me to find stuff, to know what's going on. So if I go here to camera files, right, I can drop down this little arrow and I can jump into these folders and see where all my clips are that I shot. If I had graphics in here, well, I do the same thing. I'd see them in here. Audio, same thing in here, but I don't have anything loaded in yet. And then sequences, I'll get to that in a minute, why I would make that. But the point here is I'm trying to be organized so I know where everything is. I don't want to lose things by accident. I don't want to waste time searching for it. And you're like, oh, well, can't you just go down here and hit the search button here and do a search for it? Yeah, if you can, but if you know exactly what you're looking for, then I'm not sure. But there's plenty of ways to navigate. There's plenty of ways to search in here. But every editor that I know who's not a slob and is organized in Premiere or Avid or Media or DaVinci or Final Cut, whatever it is. Actually, Final Cut's the only exception. Final Cut kind of automatically organizes everything based on tags, but that's not here, not in Premiere, so we're not going to really talk too much about it. But they're the only exception. We're kind of auto-organize stuff for you. Here, we have to do it all ourselves. So do yourself a favor and make sure you stay organized. And I know I'm kind of being a broken record on this, but it's slightly important. Okay, so let's go back to this whole workflow. So this whole first thing is about creating that bin structure within Premiere, putting my camera files, audio, graphics, sequences into places. Then I'm going to import the files into the bin. But here's the other thing too. Now I'm going to rename the files to match the slate. And then I'm going to reorder the files in alphabetical order. This is going to speed up your edit dramatically. This is going to take a little bit of time to do, but in the long run, it's going to help you out. So how do we do that? Well, let me go back into Premiere. And let's go into camera files. So I can either do this little caret drop down like that, or I could go here and double click the folder and it will basically open up that folder. Now, if I want to go backwards and get back out of this folder, if you look up here, you could see I'm in copy of action scene, I'm in camera files, and then this weird name of folder. But if I want to back up, there's a little up button here on this little folder. If I click it, it's going to take me up. Click it again, it's going to take me up again. So sometimes when I'm working in, like going to go through all the video clips, I'm just going to double click and get it into here. So the very first clip I have here, if I double click it, it's going to pop up here. So that one, I don't know about. That one's not one I need. That one, maybe. So maybe I want to organize this stuff by time of day, start time. So each one of these columns here has information about the video files. And if I got this little handle here, I can drag it and you can see there's a whole ton of information here. You could see the resolution, you could see the audio information, the tape source name, tons of stuff, capture settings. The ones we're really concerned with are media start, media end, media duration, and I probably want to know if it's got sound or if it's got what resolution it's in. So I can look at this video information right here. And I can rearrange this however I want. If I want to right click here, I can change the meta display and I can there's a ton of information here I can put. It all depends on what I want to do. But I'm going to say for 99% of the world, 99% of what we're doing, the stock way it comes out works just fine. So media start time right here. I'm going to right click on it. I'm actually going to double click on it and you can see there's a little arrow that goes up. If I click it down, it's going to go down. And when I do that, it's going to change the order. So if I want to be in chronological order, the first shot that I shot at the top, I'm going to click it so the arrow's doing that. So now I can start clicking. Every time I click on one of these, it shows me what's happening in the preview. So let's look at this shot right here, this first shot. So notice that I was lucky enough that the slate is right there in the frame on the first shot. So I don't have to kind of struggle to know what it's looking like. And if I have a hard time, let me go half. I'm going to go half resolution here. So I look at this, it's going to say, let me zoom in just a little bit. So if I can't read it too well, I'm going to go into 150%. And now I can read it. So it's scene 2, take 1. So what I want to do is this number, this name that the camera gave my video file, not very useful information. So if I click on it, I can rename it. So I'm going to call it 2-1. So that means it's scene 2, take 1. And now I've got that label. Same thing here. I'm going to double click this one. That's scene 2, take 2. Okay. Scene 2, take 2. Same thing with this one, so forth. So this one up, let's see. That one's a little too zoomed in. So I'm going to go back to 100%. Scene 2, take 1. Oh, somebody did not label properly. So I'm going to call that one 2-1.5. I'm just going to name that just because I know it's a mistake and I'm not quite sure where it's at. So this one, okay, well, I can't, let's see what it looks like. It's a little blurry. Let's find it. 2-2, well, another one where someone didn't relabel. So 2.2 point, oh, 2, sorry, 2-2.5. Let's find a couple. Okay, so now we got 2B-1. Okay, so let's put that one in. 2B-1. Go through here. 2B-2. B-2, and so forth. So pretty much what you want to do is go all the way through all of your clips and label them all so they're not, so they all make sense. So I'm going to close this project out because I've already done this and I don't want to sit here and bore you all with it. So I'm going to, so I want to save it. I'm going to hit no. Okay. Let's go close these out for a second. So don't need these. All right. So if you see here, I've got this one broken down. I've got sequences and media. And under media, I've got audio, camera A, graphics, and then something that says random shots. So if I go into camera A, you can see, in fact, I'm going to change it to assembly so we can see it a little bit better. You could see that I've gone in and I've labeled everything. So here it is in chronological order, the order that I shot. So I went through, you know, I went through every shot, made sure it's the right shot, it was the right label, all the way down throughout all my clips. And so they're all in the shooting order. So now it's all in the exact shooting order that you shot, right? So now if I go up to name, right now I have the column that says media start highlighted. That's going to organize everything based off of when time of day it was shot, or time code. If I go here to name now, see, look, I start off with 2-1, 2-2, 2-1, all these are all the order that I shot in. But if I click on the name here, now look, it suddenly reorganized everything in my script format, because now I have each scene, each shot number labeled properly. I know these first ones are going to be the first scene, scene 1. So I've got all the scene 1s here, and then I've got the scene 2s here, scene 3s, and so forth, 4 all the way down to the end. So one of the advantages of relabeling everything and then letting Premiere reorganizing it in your bin so that you're actually in the right order of shooting. So, or for editing. So now I can start editing. So before we do that, let me just jump back to workflow. So this whole thing is all about prepping for editing. So all this work that I just did about relabeling, making the bins, all that stuff is for me to be preparing to organize. So big productions where it's a multi-editor, you know, series like the Ice-T show that I was shooting before it got canceled, that one, there's a whole bunch of assistant editors whose whole job, there's people's jobs. That's all they do is what this is. They just go through the footage, relabel it, organize it, make it in nice and neat so that when the editors come in to work with it, they know where everything is. So you probably don't going to have the luxury of having someone do that for you. So you're going to have to do it yourself. And so it's not a big deal. I mean, I do it myself. When I'm editing on my own, first thing I'm going to do is organize everything. Is there an easy way to do J cuts and L cuts? Yeah, we'll talk about that. I'll get to that in a bit, but I want to get through this part first. So organization is the first step. And you should just follow along this workflow every time you do something, because it's just going to make your life and everybody else's life easier. The other thing too is if you organize it, let's say you do collaborate with somebody else, and I'm going to have 2 editors work on it. Well, if I have it all organized in one way that everybody knows, then no one's going to have a problem finding stuff. But if I do everything my own way and I have everything a huge mess, people are going to be pissed when you start getting your bins in your project to work in. I've had stuff where I've had, you know, last time I shot something, you know, edited a project, the editor or the producer who was editing gave me the timeline in the Premiere project, and it was a mess. Everything was all over the place. I couldn't find anything because they were just so sloppy, so unorganized that it actually cost me more time to figure out where everything was instead of it just being there organized. So it's super important to do that. So once I get through this phase, then I'm going to begin the next phase, which is called the string out. So I'm not just going to grab shots and drop them in the timeline and just start cutting and doing a perfect edit. I'm going to get everything in there and get a feel for what it is. So what I'm gonna do is make a timeline. I'm gonna call it project name string out. And this is where I'm gonna make rough edit decisions and place in the timeline stuff. There's no fine editing here. It's just dropping things in. The pacing should be off. It's just finding the shots that work and putting them in there. So what I'm actually doing in this assembly edit is kind of finding the story structure. I'm trying to follow the script along and see how it works. Does the order of the scenes work? Sense, it says sense there, it's funny. Stupid auto correction, gotta fix that. Once all the scenes are in the timeline, then I'll move on to the next step. So when we tackle, like, and we're talking again, professional editing, this is what most professionals do. We start with an assembly edit. We get it tweaked to where it's makes sense of where all my sequences sit, where all my scenes sit, all the shots that I choose. The timing could be off. You know, maybe it's say it's a 3-minute piece. I do the first assembly edit. It may be 8 to 10 minutes long because it's huge. It's okay because I haven't gotten to the point of fine cutting it. And then I'm going to then jump to these next steps, but let me get to main editing first and kind of show you what that's kind of like. So I'm going to go back again to desktop.
Right, I have a question.
Go for it.
So on that first part where you're saying make like a rough timeline, those still be the cuts that you've chosen, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to show you right now how to do it. I'm going to make a rough. I'm going to do the first scene and do a rough cut. So let's go to this first scene. So scene 1. So the way that I can do it is here I'm in assembly, right? And so this is the easiest way to see all my stuff. I may use this to organize everything and get it all where I want. And then I probably prefer to work in the editing mode once I start editing. So it's up to you. You could sit here and double click these clips and you can scrub through here to get a feel for them and see what it is. But for me, I actually prefer to go to editing. So I'm going to click to the editing workspace right here. So now you see I've got 2 windows here. Right now it's blank. So the first thing I do is I'm going to find the first clip that I think it works. So this one is 1A2. I'm going to say, you know what? I'm probably going to start with this one. So what I can do here, now here's where the shortcuts are going to come into play. I could sit here and mouse around and drag this around and everything, and that's just going to slow me down. But some of these shortcuts that are really important, the first one's going to be JKL. So that is an industry standard command. So the JKL basically means your playback controls. So if I hit J, it's going to go in reverse. I hit K, it's going to stop. If I hit L, it's going to go forward. Actually, it's a bad clip to show it. Let me find one that's got some action in it. Here we go. So I'm going to hit L. So I hit L, I hit K, it stops, and I hit J, it goes backwards. So this is a lot easier to do than sit here and do this, or hit here and hit play, and hit up stop, or hit play, and then back it up. Now, JKL is your friend. So in fact, some people, including me, get an extra little controller, and that's what I use. I actually have a controller here that's a jog controller, where I have one hand on that, one hand on the mouse and the keyboard. It even dramatically speeds up my workflow even more. But if I don't have the controller, I'm going to use JKL. So JKL is going to allow me to hit play, and if I hit it again, it goes twice as fast. And I've hit it a bunch of times, it goes fast forward. So same thing with the J key. If I hit backwards once, it's going to go normal speed. Twice, I can speed it up even more. So this is a quick way to kind of scrub through stuff without having to mouse around. It's way faster. So now I can go through and go, okay, what's the edit point I want? He starts walking. All right, let me go back to the first shot. That's the shot I want to start with. So the other thing you can do with JKL is you can do it in slow-mo too. So watch this. If I hold down the K key and press L, it's going to go slow motion forward. Same thing if I hold the K key and move the J, it's going to go slow motion backwards. So just these three keys, the J, the K, and the L, give you pretty good control over the playback of your clip or your timeline without playing around with the mouse. So if I wanted to do slow motion with the mouse, yeah, I can drag it like this. And do I do that sometimes? Sometimes, but I got to be honest, 90% of the time, I'm JKLing. So much easier. So let's start with the first clip. Go back up. Here we go. Okay, so this is my first shot that I want to use in the movie. So I'm going to start and figure out where I want the in and out point. So I could just grab this right now and bring it over here and put it in the timeline. And notice when I dragged it over here, it made a timeline for me. So if the easiest way to make a new timeline is to grab a clip and drag it in here, and it will automatically make that timeline. So now if you look here, I've got a new clip here. And if you look at it, it's shaped like the icon looks a little like a timeline. So what I've done is once I drag this clip over, it made a new icon with a new timeline. So the first thing I want to do whenever it happens, and you can see that I'm going to do it one more time. Let me throw this out. I'm going to show you one more time. I'm going to trash it. So here we go. Here's my clip. And let's see it says drag media here to create new sequence. I'm going to grab this clip, drag it here, let go, and boom, it made a new clip. But that sequence now has the same name as the old clip. So the first thing I want to do is the minute I make a new timeline, I'm going to go over here, double click this and rename it. So I'm going to call this action scene string out. And now notice it changed the title. So it's really important to label this stuff because it's going to become mission critical as we move through this workflow. So action scene string out. But now notice it's in the camera bin, which it should not be in. So I'm going to go back up out of this. And I'm going to go find that clip again. Here it is, action scene string out. I don't want it to be in there. So I'm going to take it out and I'm going to move it over here. Actually, wait a second. Let me back up one more. So now I'm at the base of my bin, right? So here's my sequences and here is my camera clips. So if I go down here, scroll down, here's that action scene string out. I'm going to grab it, I'm going to drag it down here, and I'm going to put it in sequences. So now it's no longer with the camera footage, but it's in sequences. And if you look down here, I've got a whole bunch of sequences here because I've already done a bunch of stuff in this project. But now I have it organized. So if I'm like, well, where's this shot at? Where's this timeline at? Oh, it's got to be in sequences. So I'm going to go here and action sequence string out. Well, there you go. There's one of them. I got two of them here, but I want to make sure it's the right one. So if I ever want to find out where something is, whether it's a video clip or a sequence, I can right click here. And let's see if it does it on this one. Star. Nope, it has to put out on these. If I right click on this video clip, let's say I want to go, where's this clip at? I want to know where this clip is. I right click on it, reveal in project. It's going to show me exactly where it is, so I know. So it's a quick way of finding stuff in your bin. The key, again, learning, the more shortcuts you learn in Premiere or any nonlinear editor, the faster you're going to be. So let's get back. So this is the clip I used to create the timeline. I don't really need this clip right there, and I'm going to delete it. Timeline's still here. So again, I did talk about this before, and you guys can kind of look it over briefly. Everything above this line here is video clips. Everything down here is audio clips. So I'm going to go back to my first shot, which is this shot right here, right? The hallway. I could just drag this whole clip and bring it down here. But the timing's definitely not off. So I want to set my in and out points ahead of time. So one of the efficient ways to work is to, every time I clip on one of these, it's going to put it in the source monitor up here. So if I double click it, it's going to be in the source monitor. Now I'm up here, I can hit the JKL keys Let's find out where I want this to start. Okay, that's where he comes in. So I might need room for title or something. So I'm going to back it up. And now I'm going to hit the letter I on the keyboard. I stands for in. Now watch. You see it just made a little in point here. You see this little gray thing expanded out there. That's showing me the in point on this clip. Now I'm just going to hit play. In fact, I'm just going to fast forward it because I want to see where it ends. Okay, right there. Let the door close. Boom. Now I'm going to hit the letter O for out. Notice it just jumped to there. So now I've got an in and an out. The whole clip extends all the way to here. But I don't need all that in my timeline. I just want this part in the timeline. So instead of bringing the whole clip here and then editing it all here, I'm just going to double click like I did. I'm going to use the JKL to move my playhead around. I'm going to use I and O to mark an in and out point. And then once I'm happy with there, then I could either do this. I can either grab this from here and notice it turns into a little hand. And I can bring that down here and I'm going to put it on this first video line. And there you go. Notice that it's the in and out points right there. So I could do the drag, all right, but I'll tell you something even better to do. So I'm going to make sure my playhead is back at the beginning. Let's say this is the first shot I have in here. And I'm like, okay, I like this shot. Well, I can now drop it in the timeline. If you look down here, there's these little icons. And you can see one that says insert, and then the other one that says overwrite. So it's a period and a comma. So if I wanted to, I could just make sure it's right. Nope, comma and period. If I hit the comma, it's going to drop it down automatically, and it's going to advance the timeline head. So JKL, IO for in and out. JKL is reverse, stop, forward. And then the comma is basically an insert shot. I'm inserting it. And then the period would be an overwrite, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. So now let's go to the second shot. Okay, same thing now. I'm going to hit JKL. So I'm going to go through. Where do I need it to start? Somewhere around there. So I'm going to hit I. Let's take it all the way. Don't need all that. So I'm going to end it right there. So now I'm going to hit O. So now I've got in and out, right? And now if I hit the comma, look how it just dumped it automatically right here. So starting to see how this can work a little bit faster. So let's go down to the next clip. Same thing, JKL. Footstep panning up. Okay, let's take a look at that. Let me back it up. Okay, I right there for in. Tilt up with him walking like that. Okay. Let me see, is anything worth there? Nope, I'm going to back it up. Probably going to stop it there for now and hit out. And then I'm going to hit comma. Boom, it added another one. So now I can move down. Let's go to the next one. So I got 1, 2. Second take here. Let's look at that take. I always kind of look at the takes, and the last take usually to me means is the good take, because if I had to keep doing takes until I'm done, then it usually means the last one is the best. But that doesn't mean there's not something of value in the other ones. So sometimes I may go back and look at those. But normally I'll grab the last takes right now. Okay, so now here we go. So now we're up here. Let me back this up. Get through the slate. Okay, there's some feet print there, and you can see I've made these insert points before, so I'm just going to make a new one. In, out. Okay, now I'm going to add the question, add the comma. Boom, I just dropped it down into my timeline. So now I've got this one. So I've got 2 versions. I'm going to stick with the last version. Let's take a look. JKL. This is a close-up. Okay, hand comes in. Let's see. Yep. Okay, backing it up. Right there, I'm going to hit an I. I'm going to hit L to play. Let the door open up. And I'll let the door close. Out. Hit comma. Okay, so those are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shots that are going to be part of my action scene string out. So I'm just going to rename this so it doesn't get too confusing with my other ones. So reveal sequence in project. There it is. I'm just going to call it string out fall. Okay, so now that I've dropped them in the timeline, now I'm going to start looking at the order that they're in and start doing timing. So now they might not even be in the right order. So the other controls that are useful here are going to be the zooming in and zooming out of the timeline. So the plus and the minus key, which are right up here, right on the top, plus and minus, that's what I'm going to use to zoom in and out. So I constantly use these to kind of expand in when I want to see something and then zoom out. So that's the first thing. The second thing too is looking at the size of this stuff. It could be bigger. I'd like to see more. So I'm going to grab this and stretch it out. Notice when I stretch it out, I start getting little thumbnails. So I'm going to do that. And then audio, I'll stretch out. But I know when we shot this, we didn't record any sound for most of it. So there's no sound there.
Someone asked a question in chat.
So do the ins and outs stay with the file if it's used in another project file? The ins and outs stay within the project file that you create. So they're not, remember, all this stuff is just linking to the original video files. They don't touch your video files whatsoever. So all these in and out points stay within your project file. If I start a brand new project and import these clips into that one, there will be no in and outs on it. So it's all about within the project that you have. So I can have multiple timelines, and I am going to have multiple timelines in here, and as long as I'm in this project, all those in and outs will stay. Okay, so getting down in here. So now I've got JK and L, same thing here. I can hit play and scrub through everything, but I also have some other controls that are really helpful. So hitting spacebar will automatically stop and play. So sometimes I'll just use that quickly if I'm wanting to stop something and not have my hand on JKL. The other set of controls that are very useful are going to be these arrow keys right here. These are going to be very critical for doing shortcuts to jumping around and also to do fine editing. The up and down arrow keys jump between edits. So if I go up, it's going to go backwards. So if I hit this up, it's going to take me to the beginning of the edit on the timeline. If I go down, it's going to advance to the next edit, advance to the next edit, and next to the end. So when I'm trying to jump in a timeline, let's say I want to go to shot 3, instead of having to go JKL like this and go all the way through and, I'll do this and kind of finesse it, I'm just going to use the arrow keys. So I want to go to that edit. I'm going to 1, 2, oh, there, I'm at the edit right now. So that's the up and down arrow keys. Really helpful to jump around. The right and left are actually going to move frame by frame. So if I just want to see frame by frame what's going on and want to be super precise, I do this. Can I do it in JKL? I can hold the K down and use L. It's not frame by frame, but it's still pretty slow. That can work. So each control here is going to be specific to what you're doing. So for me, if I'm doing like real fine editing, I need to move things around by frames. Well, I'm going to use the right and left arrow keys. other two useful controls are going to be, and on my keyboard, it's up here. It's going to be the home key and the end key. So if you have a full-size keyboard, you probably have the home and the end. And they pretty much do what you think they do. If I hit home key, it's going to take me to the beginning of the sequence. If I hit the end key, it's going to take me to the end of the sequence. So a lot of times, if I want to just see from the beginning of the in play, I'm just going to hit home and start at the beginning, and then I'll hit space bar to watch it. So let's start trimming this out. So right now I'm in string out mode. So this is super rough. I just put the basic shots in. Now I need to start feeling the rough timing of it. So I'm going to use my JKNL, back it up. Let's hit play. Let's just see, I think. Okay, so he comes in around that point. I'm just going to back it up a little bit. Let's see. 1, 2, 2. I'm going to back it up. 1, 2. And I'm going to stop right there. So right there is probably a good place to start this clip. I don't need all the extra stuff in the beginning. I'm going to put a graphic and stuff and opening title and all this stuff later, but I'm not going to do it right now because right now I just want to get the scenes down to where they want. So if I hit the plus key, I can zoom into this clip here. So I can do a couple ways to edit this thing. I can either do it via mouse, and if I grab the end here, I can drag the start of the clip to there and make an edit. That's one way. So sometimes I do that. And again, which way do I use it? It just depends on what I'm doing. I try to use shortcuts as much as possible. Sometimes I use the mouse. But to me, the mouse, the more you use the mouse, the more time you waste. So I can do this. I can also go to the toolbar here, and there's a razor here. I can click that, and I can go over here and click this, and then up, I've made a razor edit. I'm going to undo that by Command Z. But the way I usually do it is I'm going to position the playhead where I want, and then I'm going to hold down. And again, if you're on Mac, it's going to be Command. If it's on your Windows, it's probably going to be Control. And I'm going to hit K. And when I do that, it's going to make an edit right where the playhead is. So here I've just done it. Now I'm going to highlight the video in front of there, and I'm going to delete it. So now when I hit play, the timing's a little bit better. Okay, so you're going to say, well, what about this extra space here? Now I've got all this empty space here. How do I deal with that? Well, I can click on this empty space here, and if I right click, it's going to say ripple delete, and I'm going to hit that, and it's going to ripple delete. So now that's the start of my video at the very beginning of the sequence. So now I'm going to hit play. I've got him walking. Okay. So the next shot is, which shot do I want to see in here? Well, one of these two here are probably the one I want to use. So I can look here and scroll this way and see which one do I want. I think I want to start with the feet. I'm going to start with that one. So here's a quick way to work. So you can see we have multiple video tracks here. I have video 1, video 2. I can have as many as I want. I've got 3 here. I can add more if I want. I can take away. I can have as many video and audio tracks as my computer can handle. Do you need them all? Just depends how complicated your compositing is. So if you're having multiple layers of stuff composited together, well, you're going to need more video tracks. If you're going to do color correction, you're probably going to need more video tracks. But you can always add them down the road. So you don't need to have an infinite amount up front. You can just have the bare minimum. So usually if it's based at the first to 3, I kind of keep it at 3. So this first shot here, I think I want to use it. So I'm going to lift this up and I'm going to drag it over here. And I'm going to find a spot here. So everything above the timeline here on this track is going to overwrite and cover up what's under here. It's just like having paper, right? If I got one piece of paper and I put something on top of it, it's going to cover it up. Now you can see the audio kind of got messed up here, but that's okay for me for now because I don't have any audio here. But if I wanted to not have the audios overwrite each other, I'm going to hit Control Z for a minute. I would grab this audio, drag it down once like that, drag that up like that, and then move this over. And this way, these two audio channels wouldn't destroy each other. They'd actually mix. Video covers over what's on top. So here, if you watch, when I hit play here, you could see that the second shot overwrites that one. But audio, they're just going to blend together. So now I'm going to sit here and go, okay, where do I want those feet to start? So I'm going to hit my JK now. I'm going to play. 1, 2, 3. Let me just back it up one more time and see where I feel like this first edit should be. 1, 2, 3. No, I'm going to back it up. Let's go to there. Okay, so I know that if I look at this, boom, that first foot plants right there. Okay, so now I'm going to find a shot here where that foot plants. You know, maybe I need it to be that shot, that foot. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in this way. Oh, wrong one. Starting right there. So now I'm going to find a spot on my timeline where I think that those two shots will match up. And I'm going to use the right and left arrow keys. So boom. So I think it's right there. So let's drag it over. And I'm going to hit home. I'm going to hit play by hitting L. And let's see what it looks like. Well, not bad. It's there somewhere. Doesn't feel right. I'm going to hold down the K key and hit L so I go in slow motion. Yeah, I can see the timing is off just a little bit. He lands on the wide shot a frame or two before he lands on the second shot. So now I'm just gonna zoom in a little bit more, and I'm gonna move my arrow keys. So I'm just gonna back this up 2 frames, and let's see how that works. Now I'll hit home key, and now I'll hit the L key. I'm gonna go slow-mo. Okay, that didn't feel too bad. So I think they're synced as far as overlapping action. So here's an example of overlapping action, right? He's walking in the wide shot, walking in the close-up. I'm timing it so the footstep happens on the edit, and the action kind of flows over. So now I'm going to see, okay, how long do I want the shot in here? So now I'm going to go back to home. I'm going to hit L and just going to look at it for a second. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, a tilt up like that. Okay, that's not bad. So now I'm going to go up here. And I'm going to cut it. So I just hit Command or Control K, and I just split this clip. And I still might use some of this clip, so I'm just going to put it back over here for now. So what I'm doing is kind of A/B editing. We have primary stuff happening on the first video track, and then my insert shots I'm dropping on the second one. And this is a good way to edit in the beginning, because I don't have to worry about slicing this up right now. I can just drop stuff on the top, and I can slide these shots around and figure out where they fit right before I move on. So now I've got this shot. Let's see, where do I want to go from here? So I'm going to move my arrow up and just go back and look at it one more time. It's going to walk, step up like that. Okay, so then I'm going to go back here and go, well, what else do I got? I've got this shot. So I might think, you know what, maybe it just works. So I think I'm going to split this shot now. So now I'm going to hit Command K. and I want to move all this stuff over. I want to give myself a little more room to work in. So I can either grab everything like this, lasso it, and move it over. Sometimes I do that, you know, if it's short like this. But if I have a huge timeline full of stuff, I don't want to lasso everything and be worried that I missed something. So I'm going to use another tool up here. And if I go over to the toolbar here, you can see a track select forward tool, which also could be brought up by hitting A. But I'm going to click on it and watch what happens. See, now I've got this double arrow icon. If I click this, now everything from this clip forward, no matter what, notice there's spaces and everything. It basically selects everything, and I can just move it over. And then I'm going to go back to the selection tool, which is V. So again, if I wanted to not mouse around, I can use press A, turns it into that. I can hit V, turns into that. I can hit B for blade. There's a whole bunch of different tools here I can use instead of having to just move up here and click like that. So now I've made a little bit of room. Okay, so now I'm going to go back here. I'm going to bring this clip back over here, and let's start playing around. So up, up, up. Okay, I think I'm going to back this up just a little bit because he's too far down there. So let me start by dragging this out a little bit now. Taking a look. Maybe there. So here, I'm just going to snap to it. And now I'm going to go back here and look at where his cadence is, where he lands as he's walking. 1, 2. Left, right, left. Okay, left, right. So he lands on left on that edit. So now I'm going to go down here. And you're going to start right there. Okay, so here's where it is. So now I'm just going to, for small edits like that, I might just slide this over. I'm going to bring this down. Let's shrink down this. And now I want to line this up. So you can see that it's overlapping a little bit of action here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this, just drag it so it lines up with that edit right there. And now I'm going to hit play again, and let's take a look. Something quite not right there. But I'm going to leave it for now because I don't need to have everything micro tweaked at this moment. I'm just trying to get the order of the shots that I think they're going to be in right now. This is all about getting the string out together. And then once I could see it all in, you know, conjunction, then I'll move it up to the next round. So now I've got this shot here. Before he gets there, I think I want to throw this foot in, this shot right here. So I'm going to bring this one over. Remember, this is that, you know, walking in. So let's just see where I think it may land here. So I'm going to hit space bar, cutting, coming up, 2, 3. Here I'm going to hit Command K, and I'm going to split this. I'm going to bring these up for a moment. Grab this, slide it out of the way. Let's see how this looks. Okay, probably don't want it to go that long, so 1, 2, 3, 4, stop it there. Now I'm going to go back. Now I can either go back to this shot where he lands in the wide in the hall. I'm going to start with the hall one. So let's back it up to about there. I grab the end of it and snap it to my playhead. Go here. Take a look. Let's just see it one more time from the beginning. Okay, timing is not quite right, but it's close. So I think a little too long on this shot. So I'm gonna hit play one more time. 1, 2, 3. I think that's all I want to do really there. So I may just slide this back that way and go back to here. So last shot, he's landing, he's on his left foot with his right foot stepping off the ground. So I think that's kind of where it lands. Let's see what that looks like. Oops. So right there. And now I'm just gonna drag the edge of this. So because when it's little edge, like instead of doing Command K, and I use the Command K usually when I want to split things in half and use them. But if I'm just doing a quick trim in the beginning or the end, it's not, sometimes it's just easier to grab the mouse and do it. Again, how you operate is up to you. You'll find out what works for you. So now I'm going to put this here. I could either just drag it like that, or I could hit here, right click and hit ripple delete and do that. Again, two different ways of work. Whichever works for you is up to you. Walking, 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 comes in. Okay, so now I know here I'm gonna hit Command K. I know I don't need the rest of this stuff for now, so I'm gonna zoom out. I'm gonna slide this over. And now I'm gonna grab this shot right here. So now I've got the shot coming in. So I may just bring it over here. And I'm gonna put it right there. Okay, so I want to match that hand. So that hand maybe right there. I don't want it to be fully next to it, so I'm going to trim this to there. And then here, I think I'm going to start there. Let's see how that feels. Okay, not bad. Yeah, I could leave this, or I'm going to look at this shot and maybe I'll get the final door closing there. So I'm going to go here, I'm going to hit Command K, split it, and then I'm just going to delete this because I don't need the beginning of it. And I'm actually going to take this and drop it down there. And then bring this up. And move it over here. Let's see what we got. So I think I want to start it right there. Let's see what it looks like. Okay. So this stuff now, I'm like, all right, well, I'm done. I don't think I need that stuff, so I'm just going to delete it, get it out of there. So now I just did the first scene, and it's rough. I mean, there's plenty of room to tweak and tighten and everything in there, but I don't really care because I just want to get it down in some kind of order because the fine editing and stuff, you don't want to do it scene by scene. You want to do it in the whole sequence. And, so if you're talking about, a short like this, it's a couple of minutes. Well, you want to get the whole film done before you look at it. If you're talking about a bigger film, well, I probably want to get a couple scenes that fit together in a sequence and look at them together because I want the pacing and timing all to feel right within the part of the sequence that's kind of together. Any questions so far?
I mean, I think it's going to take some practice to get used to it, but it seems pretty user-friendly.
It's very user-friendly. This is probably one of the friendliest interface editors to use. Go try using Avid Media Composer 5 years ago. It's a nightmare to use. Even Final Cut, when you first start using it, you're like, this thing doesn't make sense until you do it enough to figure it out. Premiere, pretty much, it's probably one of the easiest ones to use. So the trick is learning the shortcuts, learning what these keyboard, these tools do to help you out. The more you know, the faster you get. And just like everything in life, the more you practice, the better you're going to get. So editing is just like learning how to use cameras, just like everything, this whole point we've talked about up to this point. You got to keep doing it over and over again to get better and better at it. So let me go back to this area. So main editing, assembly editing is this, they call it the string out. So you're basically just stringing it out. I may have even done a little bit too much. I may have crossed over into work print. Really, string out in a real production is going to be dropping the shots down all in a timeline so that they're all the shots you think you're going to use. And then from there, move on to the work print. So work print is where I'm going to start focusing on editing the timing, fix any problems, including continuity mistakes, working with dialogue. I'm going to clean it up, correct any problems. Now I'm going to start adding music. So here's the key. Here's an important thing to do. And I, again, strongly recommend you follow me because you want to learn from my mistakes in the past. So here we go. We've got all of this stuff going, right? So I'm just going to do a quick cleanup in here. In fact, let me just jump to, sometimes I jump back to assembly when I want to really look at my bin here because it's bigger. So I'm going to go up. I'm going to go to sequences and I'm going to make this a new bin in sequences. I'm going to call it 2021 spring. I'm going to grab this bin. I'm going to move it into my sequences right down there. And I'm just going to basically grab everything in that's old and put it in there. This way it's out of the way. YouTube, get in there. There we go. So now I've got this action scene string out fall. And let's just say, for the sake of argument, this is my whole timeline with all my scenes in there. So once I'm like, you know what, I've got everything in there and I think it's a pretty good string out, I want to move on to work print. Well, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go here and I'm going to highlight this. I'm going to right click on it. And I'm going to go down to, where is it? Duplicate. And I'm going to make a copy of my sequence. And here it says action scene, string out, fall, copy, right? So I'm going to rename it. I'm just going to call it action scene. And this time, I'm going to go back here and call it work print. And now I'm going to double click it. So it's in the timeline now. And notice here, I've got tabs. So now I've got two tabs going on here. One that says action scene string out fall and action scene work print. I'm going to close this one because I don't want it open and get confused. So now I'm on work print. And now this is where I'm actually going to start doing more fine editing. So you're like, well, why did you make a copy? Why don't you just stay with the original timeline that you did the string out? And here's the reason why. Every time I do a major revision or change to my timeline, I'm going to make a new copy of it and rename it. Because what this does is gives me a backwards paper trail to go backwards. So what happens if I get so far into my edit and I totally mess it up? I'm like, oh man, I need to start all over from scratch. Instead of wiping everything and starting from scratch, I could just back up to revisions. So think of it as a manual way of undoing or having an edit history of what you're doing in Premiere. So if I go back to spring 2021 here, you could see I've got a whole bunch of stuff here. I got work print 1, got a string out here, and if I go even older than that, down to here, I've got action scene rough cut version 2, action scene rough cut version 2 alt. I have multiple versions here that I can kind of just keep going backwards in, and I keep keeping them. I can have as many sequences in my project as I want. And you can start seeing why it's good to keep everything kind of organized here, right? So let's go to, I'm going to steal from the Spring and let's go to work print. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to make a duplicate of this one. We're going to call it duplicate it. I'm going to grab it and bring it into here. And let's double click it. So here's what I did before. So now it's a little bit more organized, kind of the same thing. My edit was just a little bit different. Actually, it's a better edit probably. So from now here, I can actually move forward and start doing more advanced stuff. So let's go and pick another timeline. It's a little bit further. So here's where the timing is really going to get out. This is where I really want to fine tune it. So let's see, work print one. Let me look at this one. Work print two. No. Here we go. Okay, let me go back to editing. So actually, I'm going to copy this, duplicate it, and just put it into sequences. Collapse all this stuff down. You can see now I've got a whole bunch of tabs open, and you don't want to keep them open because if you accidentally are in the wrong tab editing, you might not realize it until later on, and then you're like, ah, man, where'd my edits go? So let me jump back. Now I'm going to go back to my workspace that is editing. So now I started organizing it. So now I've got to this point where I've got this rough cut in that has the whole scenes in there. And now once I have everything together, I could start figuring out the timing and start tightening it up. You can also notice that I dropped a lot of the shots down. If you look at what I originally did here, if I go back to this one, I've had shots all over the place, right? So now I may want to collapse these down and put them in here because I like the edit. So if I want to put these down now, I might just hold the shift key down and then just drag it down. So now I've put those down. You can see that I'm kind of starting to clean up my timeline here. So now it's all on one track. It's good. It's a good way to work. You don't want to keep everything all spread out if it's just edits. Like, it's great to use different layers to work around while you're editing and fine tuning. But once you get everything where you think it is, you can drop it down and then work at this level because it's going to make it neater and more organized. Specifically when we get into color correction and stuff, we need to have everything kind of on one track. So the other thing I can do is I can kind of get rid of some of this audio because I don't need it, because I don't have any audio in here. So somebody was asking, how do I do a J cut and an L cut? Well, I could kind of show you the idea here. So if I try to make an edit, let's look at this real quick. If I make an edit here, it's just going to move both the audio and the video. So if I want to just move the video or the audio, so let's say I want to make an L cut, which means the audio is going to start first and then the video is going to come up. There's two ways I can do it. I can go up top here and go to where it says link selection, this button. If I turn it on like that, now I can have independent control over the audio and the video. So if I want to make an L cut, there's an L, and then I turn it back on, click on it and slide it this way. Now you can see as the playhead goes by, the audio will start and then the video will start. So I just made an L cut. That's not the best way to do it. I prefer, I'll show you my way of working. So I'm going to put everything back the way it is. If I click on this, if I hold down Option, if I hold down Option and then click on the audio, then it gives me the ability to edit it independently. And then when I unclick it, everything goes back. If I use this tool up here, you know, Command Z, I have to let him in. I have to turn it on, click on the part of the video I want, and then remember to turn it off. And even when I do that, it's still not connected. So I'm gonna hit Command Z and then click again. So it's like 3 steps to do it. So to me, what's easier to do, instead of having to even play around with this, I just hold down the Option key, click on this, and that's all I have to do. And then I get to click off and then click back again. And now I can move the clip in an L cut. If I want to do a J cut, it's the opposite. So instead of grabbing the video clip, the audio clip here, I'm going to hold down the Option key, hit the video, and do the opposite. And then click back. So that's that way. So everybody kind of see this, how you can do J and L cuts the easy way?
Yes.
So the other thing you can do is, let's say I don't even want the audio. I just want to get rid of it. Well, I can hold down the Option key, hit the audio, hit the delete key, it's gone. Do the same thing for this audio. If I want it, I can hit the delete key, it's gone. If I want to get rid of all the audio, I can hold down the Option key, lasso all the audio, hit delete, it's all gone. We've broken it. I'm going to hit undo it all for a second. So let me show you one cool thing. Let's say, for sake of argument, you were editing and you decided you were going to do an L cut. So let's do an L cut real quick. So I'm going to make an L cut, all right? And then you're like, okay, cool. And then I go to move everything. And let's say I still had just the audio selected. I move this, and I'm like, oh man, the video didn't move with it. Now if I try to move these two, look, they're linked together. But if you look at the upper right-hand corner here, you see that little red tab there with the number. It says -13. That's telling me that these two clips are supposed to be synchronized because they're audio and video, and that I've unsynced them. And it tells me how many frames they're unsynced. So if you accidentally unsync something and it doesn't sound right, and you're like, what's going on? And you look and see that there's this little tab here with some numbers in it, that means that your clips are out of sync. So how do I fix it? Well, I can go back, hit the Option key, and then just drag this back until those numbers correct.
That is
So it's
so
sick.
cool. That is so useful.
Yep. So now I'm still not right. 17 off. So it's a way for you to see exactly how far off you are. So they have some, cool little tools in here to help you while you're editing, to make sure when you make mistakes, you can kind of get back at it and fix it, or vice versa. So let me just jump back into the print copy. So work print. So the whole point here is that I want to get through everything that's going to be rough cut it in. It doesn't have to be perfect, but now I've got I got a feeling of my pacing. So if I wanted to, here I've dropped some titles in the beginning. So if I hit play now, I can kind of see my titles come up. Then it cuts in. Now I can start feeling the pace of everything, how it feels. Does it feel like it's working? Does it any place feel slow or too fast? And I can start making changes here. So once I get happy with what I think is the rough cut or the work print, so here's rough cut. Let's say I'm happy with it. I say, you know what, this works good. I'm going to rename it. I'm going to duplicate it. I'm going to instantly call it, not work print, fine cut. So now that I've gone from work print, I can go to fine cut. So when I go to fine cut, so once I get to fine cut, now is where I'm gonna, start dropping music down. I may drop music down in the work print just to start getting things synchronized, because I may make the edit, and then if I don't have any music down in there, when I drop the music in, it may not feel right because the timing of the edits may be off, because now I have a piece of music that it's being linked to. So now I'm gonna have to finesse the edits again to make sure it matches up with the audio. So if I go back to here, so again, assembly edit is the string out, make a timeline, rough cut, get all my scenes in there. They don't have to be perfectly set up. They can be out of work. The shots don't have to be perfectly edited and trimmed. That's all going to happen in the work print. So once I'm happy with getting the assembly all done with everything in the timeline, duplicate it, rename it main editing or work print, call it work print. Why do they call it work print? Well, back in the day when we shot on film, we would shoot, a negative, and then the negative would be developed into what's called a work print. And the work prints where they'd actually cut it and trim it and do all this stuff and basically beat up the film while they're editing. And then once they got the edit done and locked, then they would go back and actually take the edits they did on the work print and transfer them over to the negative and cut the negative, and then make a master from that. So work prints are basically, you can make as many work prints as you want. If you have 5 editors, well, you make 5 work prints. That's where the concept of it came from. In nonlinear editing, we don't really deal with that anymore, but we still kind of think of it as a work print because it's where we're doing most of the work. So assembly edit, string out, main editing, work print. Here, I'm going to focus on trimming the edits. Here's where I find any problems. I'm going to have to find solutions to. So I have continuity problems because I don't have enough coverage and there's a jump cut. I got to figure out a way to fix that. If I'm using dialogue, here's where I'm going to start cleaning it up and correcting any problems. So maybe I have to do retract my the voices of my actors because the sound doesn't sound correctly. Maybe I need to trim the editing and separate them. We're going to talk about how to do dialogue editing. I'll show you guys in a week or two how to do that. I also am going to add music and sound here. So this is where I'm just going to start getting everything in. It's where most of the work in editing is going to take place in this work print. Once I'm there, once I'm pretty happy with it, pretty close, then I'm going to duplicate it again. And I'm going to call it the fine cut. And so in the fine cut, I'm basically going to, this is where the super tweaking, what we call frame fudging is, where I'm going to agonize over frames. Is it one frame too much or one frame too light in the edit? Do I have to move it a frame or two? Do I want to add make sure I have the opening and closing credits in? Want to fine tweak the audio edits, make sure that the video edits match to the beat or transitions. If I'm going to add transitions here with video audio transitions is where I'm going to do it. Now I'm going to start adjusting audio levels, basically mixing with automation. And when I'm finally done with the edit, or more importantly, when I run out of time, the edit becomes locked and no more changes should be made anymore. So go through the structure in big productions, and that's why I'm kind of talking about how to do it with you guys. It's a good way to, you want to be involved in using a workflow like this so that you keep track of everything, especially if you're working with other people. Like, I'll give you an example. I was working on a project with somebody about a comedy pilot, and we must have had at least 100 revisions of it. And I had to keep doing this workflow because we get to a point and the director's like, man, I just don't like the way this is going. Let's go back and try again. And if I didn't make all these multiple timelines that kind of backed up my work, I'd have to go back from scratch and start again or try to undo what I did. And that was going to be a disaster. It's going to take up way too much time. So breaking everything down into these chunks of production or editing is the way professionals do it. And this is the way I suggest you do it, because not only does it make it more organized for you, but it also allows you to back up whenever you want to make, in case you want to make revisions. So once we get to the point of the fine cut, we're all happy. This is when it becomes locked, and there should be no more changes. And the reason is because if with you guys, everything's being done in Premiere, so it's not that big of a deal. But if I was doing something in a bigger facility and I've got a team that's getting ready to do the final sound mix, they're going to be doing it in Pro Tools someplace else. And if they do their mix and it's timed to the cut that I have, then I go back and say, hey guys, sorry, I made a couple edits changes. They have to go back and readjust all their timing. And that's a nightmare. So today, software has gotten better where there's called automatic conforming, which I could send them the cut and the software will kind of analyze it and find out where the tweaks and everything will be made, but it's still a pain in the butt. And it still is a time consuming process where someone's going to have to manually watch it and make sure all the edits work. So if it's an hour or 2 hour project, well, someone's going to sit there for 2 hours after it reconforms to make sure there's no problems with this audio drifting from the video because edits were made. So that's why they talk about locking the master and not making any changes. Same thing for special effects. If it's locked and I have a scene that's 5 seconds long, a shot, and they're going to do special effects in that, and then I later on go, you know what, guys, we changed it. Now it's 6 seconds long. Well, there's an extra second of time in the shot that there isn't an extra second of special effects. Guess who's got to go back and re-render and redo all that stuff? So you can start seeing where not having a locked master or fine cut becomes a problem when you have bigger, more complicated projects. So for us, once we get done with the fine cut, then we're going to go out to color correction and color grading. We are going to talk about this. We're going to spend a whole class talking about how to do this. Preliminary intro to color correction and grading. So the same thing is going to happen. I'm going to duplicate my fine cut sequence, call it project name, whatever, color grade. And I'm going to begin normalizing the color and exposure between shots and scenes. I'm going to fix problems, underexposure, wrong color balance. And I'm going to basically get everything kind of matched and balanced to where it needs to be so it looks normal across scenes. And then I'm going to color grade it. Again, I'm not going to go into much detail here. I'll talk more about it when we get to that point. But we're going to color grade it where we create an aesthetic for each scene. The colors and the mood should reflect that scene. And this is all, first half of color correction is about fixing problems, making sure everything looks constant. Second half, which is color grading, is all about mood, look, addressing the story. Once that's all done, now I'm finally going to render out the master. So then I'm going to take this color graded sequence and I'm going to render it out in an Adobe Media Encoder. And I'm going to make a high quality master format such as ProRes HQ422. We're not probably going to do that because we don't need to make a full res high quality image. We can make an H.264 and be fine. You can do it if you want. I will show you for the last assignment how to do that, and you can go back and redo it if you want. But if I make this master, this basically a super high resolution, the biggest resolution I can make, the biggest color depth it can have, which is like ProRes HQ422. In fact, there's even higher ProRes versions that are even more quality for us, where it's going to stick at this. From that master, then I can make all the other copies. I can make DVDs. I can make streaming. I can make Facebook, YouTube. I can master it for Netflix. I can take this and turn it into a DCP for film projection. All this can come from the master, which means I don't have to bring Premiere back in and render it out and do all these things. I can make all the multiple renders from this final master format. Does that all make sense to everybody? Any questions so far?
Yeah, I have a question. Now I know you said we changed the color like to fit the mood and depending on the sequence. If we did change the color from, scene, sorry, not sequence, scene. If we did change the color from scene to scene, it shouldn't change too majorly, right? Because that will be really noticeable.
Probably. We're going to talk about it though. I'm going to save all those color correction, color grading questions for when we do it. So we'll have a whole sit down where we'll color grade this little video, and I'll show you all the tips and entry level techniques you can do to improve and make it look more Hollywood-like. But you are right. There are certain limitations to color, but obviously, like if you're shooting a dark, moody scene at night and then you cut to a broad daylight shot in the next scene, they can be different, right? Because the lighting and everything's different. So you have to kind of look at that and make a decision on how you want to apply your grading based on the scenes, how they sit next to each other. Again, it's just like the rest of filmmaking. Color grading is an art form, and it takes a long time to master it. So that's kind of all I want to talk about today. We'll go back into Premiere next class and talk a little bit more about getting through. I'll show you a little bit more just to recap on it. But I really did want to get through this whole editing workflow first because it's pretty important that you follow this. And so for those of you who have already shot, you want to start at least doing this function here where you're organizing your assets, getting them in there, relabeling everything, and beginning the edit process, and then getting at least to a string out this week. And if you're not haven't shot yet, well, you got to get your green light. If you've gotten your green light from me, start shooting. If you haven't gotten your green light from me yet, well, you gotta, whatever you owe me to make it green, you got to do it. Do it sooner than later, because I'm not going to wait. I'm not going to give people green lights in 2 weeks from now because it's too late by then. Okay, Jessica says, I have a bit of confusion. Can you clarify assignment 5 quickly? What actually should we be submitting on November 18th? Okay, well, I'll tell you one more time. If we go down to assignment 5, which is now on the 18th, you're just shooting. Remember, there's nothing to be submitted for this part of the project. This is just the time reference where you got to be done by shooting. Originally, it was supposed to be the 8th, which is which was today, but we're pushing a little bit just to give everybody extra time. So that's the latest you could be shooting by. You got to be done shooting by then. If you're not done by then, you're just not going to get it done in time. So you don't have to hand anything in. There's nothing to be handed in. All you got to do is make sure you get your shoot done, and you make sure you cover all this stuff that needs to be done for each film that each person's doing. Nothing to be handed in. The next thing you guys are going to owe me is assignment number 6, which is the edit. And this is due on the 29th, no later. You can upload it sooner if you want, but don't get it in later. This is what you owe me. This is the next thing that you're going to owe me. And then we're going to start going into in a week or 2 on the final project.
Does the edit on the 29th, would that include like title graphics and such and credits?
That is everything. That is a finished product.
Okay, got it.
So that means rendered out. See, it says, please submit the, oh, you can't see it now because I turned it off, but the rendered master is what I want. I want that H.264 file rendered out from your timeline, uploaded to the assignment. That's what I want. Completely done. So have a great evening, everyone.